All right, I just finished grading the process maps or flowcharts that each of you did for the car wash, and I wanted to make sure that you were done with that so I could, before I went over this discussion, because you're going to be working on Kristen's cookies, and I'm asking you to do a process map for that. So remember to go back and look at those 6 steps and to use the correct symbols for it, and then also this time you will be adding times to it, because in order to you have to add the times in order to really think what the bottleneck could potentially be. And when you talk about bottlenecks, those really are constraints, right? So either they're physical, so machine, labor, or material shortage. In our car wash example, the machine could be, a constraint could be, or a bottleneck could be how many cars per minute the actual machine can do, right? So if you can only run, if everyone chose, for example, if we're using Quick Trip, chose the ultimate, which is like 6 minutes in length, I think it might be longer than that too. That means that you can only do 10 cars per minute, or per hour, right? Because 6 minutes times 10 would be the 60. But really that's probably too high of an estimate because you have to have time for people going in and out. But that would be considered a bottleneck. You couldn't do any more than what the machine is capable of doing, and that would be one type of constraint. I'm not going to go over the 2 other ones. You can certainly look those up if you're interested in, but I wanted to go over this particular one and to help you recognize that a bottleneck is any resource whose capacity limits the organization's ability to meet volume, mix, or fluctuating demand for a product. So another thought would be a bottleneck, or when we talk about capacity, which I'm asking you to look up and discuss in the Kristen's cookies, capacity is the maximum amount you could do, right? So, and we will get into this more later on in the term, but this is just an introduction to it. So if you have we'll go back to the car wash because you just got done with that. So if we can do no more than 10 cars per hour, that would be the capacity of that particular machine, right? Okay, so that, do we always want to run at capacity, or do we always run at capacity? Absolutely not. But that is what we're talking about when we're talking about capacity, and a bottleneck is referring to that capacity's limit. So a bottleneck can be both internal or external to the firm, but typically it's a process or a step with the lowest amount of capacity. So as I discussed that earlier. So when you're going through Kristen's cookies, think about what that process or step has the lowest capacity, what the lowest number is available to do. I've also asked you to discuss throughput time, and we really didn't go over that well, but that's basically the total amount of time from the start to the finish of a job or a customer being processed. So if we're talking about throughput time for the car wash, that would mean from the very moment you pull up to the car wash all the way till the end when your car is dry and you actually are leaving the car wash. So that you would time out. So if there was a long line, your wait time would have to be calculated in there, and that would be X number of minutes. The amount of time that it takes you to put the money in, the amount of time it takes you to get through the car wash, and then also the amount of time to leave the car wash facility. So those would all be items that you would have to add time to. So that's throughput time. We talked a little bit about capacity. That's the most you'll have to know about it for this week, and we will get into it a little bit deeper later on. But a bottleneck can be identified in several different ways. So either it has the highest total time per unit processed, it has the highest average utilization and total workload, or it is a reduction of processing time would reduce the average throughput for the entire process. So what does that mean in terms to understand? It means that you would have you would identify it with a place where you can't go any higher than what is being done. So say, for example, we were at a clinic, we'll just use that if you can make a visual, and I come in for a doctor's appointment. The doctor at any point in time can never see more than 5 patients per hour. I'm making this up. So even though the receptionist can check in 60 people, or say 25 people, it can't go anymore. It wouldn't help at all in the process because the doctor can only see 5. So that is the bottleneck. So hopefully that helps you understand this a little bit. I'm not looking for you to be totally in depth, but I also want you to be understanding the importance of a bottleneck and how that plays into this case study that you're doing this week on Kristen's cookies. And just one more slide and walking you through, like I was talking about, coming into the receptionist area. So bottleneck time is the time of the slowest workstation, one that takes the longest in a production system. And the throughput time is the time it takes a unit to go through the production from the start all the way to the end. So in this particular illustration, the throughput time would be the 2 plus the 4 plus the 3, which would be 9 minutes per unit. So that would be the throughput time. So just keep that in mind as you are reading the Kristen's Cookies case, and let me know if you have any questions. This is the first time I've taught this class online, so I'm trying to anticipate where I can help you out with questions that have occurred in face-to-face classes.